These are some Dinar Guru updates, starting off with Mountain Goat article, quote, Iraq moves internationally from the gray to the white area. Another quote, Iraq has come a long way in combating the financing of terrorism and money laundering, unquote. Mountain Goat says, Iraq was removed from the most dangerous countries area and moved from the gray area to white. This is fantastic news. So now they just told us the level of corruption is acceptable and that they are in compliance with all international standards in this regard. When will they reinstate the dinar? I am telling you, get ready. It's not too long before IQD is back on the Forex and trading, and then we go to the bank. Mark Z via PDK, what I'm hearing from the banking side is that rates are starting to stabilize on their screens into what the rates should be. I will try to get them to share those rates unless they say, heck no, Mark. Mark Z also says, I was told the constant changes they had been seeing on the screens is the new system balancing things out to where they should be in correlation to other currencies. Frank 26 article quote, Iraqi Foreign Ministry, the delegation's visit to Washington will discuss two basic economic files. Another quote, the Iraqi delegation headed by Hussein arrives in Washington with the dollar at the forefront of its talks, unquote. Frank says, notice another DC trip on the same subject, the exchange rate. Claire says, Secretary Antony Blinken tweet, quote, I chaired with Iraqi Deputy Prime Minister at Fuad Hussein I, the first ever economic-focused higher coordinating committee of the U.S.-Iraq Strategic Framework and Agreement. We will continue to work with the Iraqi government to strengthen Iraq's economy and energy independence. Pimpy article, quote, Blinken says we are working to strengthen Iraq's economy and reintegrate into the region, unquote. Pimpy says, as investors in the Iraqi dinar, you want to hear this kind of news. The more they can strengthen the economy, make it more secure, the less they rely on oil sales, the better it is for the Iraqi dinar. It becomes a stronger currency, and you can have a much better exchange rate. Walking Stick via Frank 26, the exchange rate is now going in the correct direction due to an internal float of the Iraqi dinar that is occurring inside of Iraq right now, preparing itself to reach 1-to-1. We see the evidence of the next step. This is called Phase 2 of the CBI's monetary reform. Mark Z via PDK question, in your opinion, when do you see the next adjustment of the IQD happening? Mark Z says, I would guess sometime within the next week. We are still seeing fluctuations in their markets, floating in the local markets. I believe they will have to make another adjustment soon. Pimpy says, looks like Iraq is rounding up some of those criminals that have been stealing some money, but there's a bigger problem going on with Iraq. Sure, they revalued their currency and increased the exchange rate, but that's a temporary fix. There are guidelines the United States put on Iraq, and if they don't follow it, it's just going to get worse. Nader from the Mideast said it's not easy for the government and the CBI to come out and say, okay, let's go back to where we were before. In 1 hour, 1 day, 1 year, it's not easy, guys. It's a lot of things, a lot of process they have to go through. It's a lot of work. These guys work day and night, 24 hours. This guys try to fight strong people like the United States, Russia, Germany, France, Switzerland, Italy. You say these guys pouring in, it's only for their interests. It's not for the interest of Iraq. Nobody's for the interest of Iraq. You know better than that. Just be patient. Bruce Weiser now says, guys, we are very close. It appears that we're going to see some things happening pretty soon. I hope it's before the 15th. If this intel holds up, that's how close we are right now. Let's see what happens. Militiaman says they put out rules 3 weeks ago. They need to go to a dinar for public and commercial use to replace the dollar. You're going to have to pick up the dinar, and that's what they're forcing it to. Everybody in the street needs to now buy cars, groceries, commercial products, everything in dinars. That's where the rub is coming in. It's a supply and demand issue. They have liquidity issue. All right, Mark Z via PDK article quote, with more than 150,000 dinars, dollar exchange rates rise in Iraq, unquote. Mark Z says they did not drop it far enough, guys. Currency sites around the globe started showing some interesting things throughout the day today. XE is still showing the official rate. Forex is still showing the official rate. But what we started seeing in the rest of them was very interesting. 1 US dollar equals 737 dinar, which would be a very substantial change. And that is just one of many sites. Most are showing 1 USD equals 680 dinar up to 1,070. Mark Z goes on to say this doesn't mean we can go out and exchange them. The markets are showing extreme volatility and they are trying to predict what the next step is. We're hearing a lot of fantastic chatter in Iraq that they're expecting another move. Also hearing from more and more sources to expect a substantial move. And big one we have been waiting for. I'm getting this from many sources. All right, and lastly, Frank 26, bank story, name protected. I just called the currency exchange in Tampa, Florida. I said, do you verify currency in-house or do you have to send it out? She said, no, we verify everything in-house. I said, I'm supposed to have 100,000 dinars, want to exchange them. She said that would be $3. I said, will you give me a check or would you send it to my bank? She said, no, we'll give you $100,000 cash minus $3 to transfer it. Then I asked her, what if I brought in 1 million? She said, well, we would charge you $5. I didn't ask her anymore because I know they're not going to give me $1 million in cash. And next we have a couple of these are still from yesterday's YouTube, but we've got some new ones coming here. We've got Mountain Goat. We don't yet have the RV, but we remember the 2023 budget is not yet passed or open, and so there's still a very good chance that the CBI may still make this move to reinstate dinar. It is still very possible and very likely. Militiaman says it really looks like things we're seeing are unfolding quickly and intense, fast and furious. Meetings in Istanbul, those were successful, done. Then they were going to come into New York, into Washington, D.C., from about the 7th up to the 10th, they all showed up. That's really powerful that the delegation wasn't only the second string, it was the first string. Everybody was there. They were talking about exchange rate issues. All right, Pimpy says there's a couple of things people got to understand. You have the official exchange rate and the market exchange rate. We know recently the Iraqi Dinar exchange rate changed to 1,300. Right now the market is showing 14.59 dinars for every dollar. Obviously, you don't want that gap to get too big then because you start encouraging people to buy on the black market. If I take $100 to the bank, they officially do the exchange of 1,300 dinars for every dollar versus me going to the black market and I got somebody who's willing to give me 1,700 dinars for every dollar. Obviously, I'm going to go where I get the most money. Mark Z via PDK still getting many rumors, confirmations of fluctuating bank screens. Banking contacts are on call this weekend. I don't think they'll be called in, but I guess it's still a possibility and an any moment thing. In my opinion, most of them are looking at early this week. Claire article quote, the governor of the Central Bank of Iraq meets with vice chairman of the board of directors, JP Morgan Bank. Quote, during the meeting it was agreed upon that JP Morgan would facilitate payments from the Iraqi banking system to People's Republic of China to finance private sector imports directly. CBI is committed to applying international standards and anti-money laundering and counterfeiting the financing of terrorism, AML/CFT measures, Al-Alaq said. Frank 26 says it's going in the right direction, 1,300 to 1. Frank says it ain't got nothing on 100 to 1. It's got nothing on 1 to 1. And that is the goal because they need to reach the rear in an international float. Walking Stick via Frank 26 says the Iraqi Stock Exchange and the Herbal Stock Exchange as of the 28th of January are all linked in position ready for the float. It's just not live yet. The Iraqi Stock Exchange and the Herbal Stock Exchange will be going live internationally the moment the new exchange rate is released. All the platforms are now linked. Heinig article quote, Washington meeting between the governor of the central bank and the director of the IMF quote, the International Monetary Fund continues to provide technical support to the Central Bank of Iraq in various fields. All right, Paulette says, after listening to the last couple bank stories, it appears to me that some banks may actually charge a fee to purchase foreign currency in addition to any spread based on my personal experience. As long as you are purchasing / selling a certain volume, most banks do not charge a fee, at least those I deal with. Therefore, I don't think any of us will be charged a fee at most banks, as hopefully our volume will far exceed the requirements, even if exchanging a relative minimal amount. What we all need to do is find the best rate. For example, let's say Bank A rate is $1, 1 USD to 1 IQD. Across the street, Bank B is $1, 1 cent USD to 1 IQD. This wouldn't seem like much of a difference, right? The reality is that's $10,000 difference if exchanging 1 million IQD. What if Bank C is at $1.15? $15,000 difference. To me, these are significant amounts shop rate. And lastly, Pimpy says everybody's like, hey, Pimpy, what do you think the rate's going to be? I was thinking they would go back to the original rate, which was 11.90 dinars for every dollar. I knew they were going to go for increments. It makes sense. You don't want to do anything to damage your economy. How you protect your economy is to do these in small increments like I was talking about before in the past. That was my prediction, and that would be around 1,000 or 11.90 dinars for every dollar. I was slightly off, but not by much.